Good morning, everyone. Today, I'll be presenting my resource critique on the Country Fire Authority's MI Fire Ready interactive resource and exploring its application for a Year 5 geography lesson. This resource directly addresses the Australian Curriculum Content Descriptor AC9HS5K05, which focuses on the management of Australian environments and challenges posed by severe weather events such as bushfires. The key HASS concept I am using is cause and effect. This lens allows us to explore the causes behind bushfires, such as the role of vegetation, wind, and topography, and the effects these fires have on communities and the environment. Teaching bushfire management is especially crucial in Australia, where bushfires are a recurring hazard that deeply impact our lives. By examining these cause and effects relationships, students will develop not only an understanding of environmental risks, but also practical knowledge on how communities respond to and manage these events. Furthermore, these resources provide a direct link between theoretical concepts and practical applications, enabling students to see how changes in one element of the environment can have significant downstream effects. And this is particularly important for students living in bushfire-prone areas, but it's also essential knowledge for all Australians. With that, let's move on to describe the resource itself. Now, I am going to explain what the MI Fire Ready resource is all about. This tool is an interactive web-based application developed by the Country Fire Authority Victoria, and you can access it through the CFA Schools app. Although it was originally designed for secondary students, it can be easily adapted for our Year 5 geography classes with a little extra teacher guidance. The resource is divided into three main sections. First, in the fire risk section, students encounter scenarios like the Ember Attack game. In this activity, students must quickly click on burning embers before they ignite near vegetation or a house. This part of the tool is a clear example of cause and effect. If embers are not put out, the cause, they can lead to spot fires and further damage, which is the effect. Next, in the How Fire Behaves section, students are invited to manipulate different variables such as wind speed, wind direction, and slope of the land. Using interactive sliders and toggles, they can observe how these changes directly influence the speed and intensity of a bushfire. For example, increasing the wind speed shows how the fire spreads more rapidly, reinforcing the cause and effect relationships that we are studying. And the final section, Fire Safety, focuses on practical measures. Here, the resource explains actions that people can take, such as managing vegetation around homes and preparing emergency plans, which again shows the proactive decisions the cause can lead to safer outcomes, which is the effect. Overall, this resource directly addresses content descriptor AC9HS5K05 by demonstrating how communities manage bushfire events. And it is from an authoritative, relevant government source that is Country Fire Authority Victoria, and focuses on practical decision making and is suitable for various learning styles. One of the greatest strengths of MI Fire Ready is its highly engaging and interactive format. By actively involving students in simulation and decision-making process, the resource helps them internalize complex cause and effect relationships in a tangible way. The visual and interactive elements cater to a variety of learning styles, enhancing retention and understanding of the content. Moreover, being developed by the CFA ensures that the information is accurate, current, and grounded in professional expertise. However, there are a few limitations to note. The content is Victoria specific, which means that teachers might need to provide additional context or supplementary materials for students from other regions of Australia. Also, because the interface and language are designed for a secondary audience, some adaptation and scaffolding will be necessary to ensure that Year 5 students can fully grasp the concepts. Now, regarding student appropriateness, this resource is highly engaging because it uses real-world scenarios to spark curiosity. The interactive format, complete with age-appropriate visuals and language, is well suited to Year 5 students, especially when we provide some scaffolding to simplify any complex terminology. Moreover, the presentation of bushfire information is non-traumatic and meets safety standards, ensuring that even sensitive topics are handled appropriately. Additionally, the website is designed specifically for educational purposes, free from any inappropriate advertising, so it maintains a focused, safe learning environment. Now, I'd like to walk you through the structure of our questioning lesson, which leverages the Fire Ready resource to promote students' inquiry skills and deepen their understanding of cause and effect in bushfire management. This lesson specifically addresses skills descriptor AC9HS5S02, guiding students to develop questions about people, places, events, and challenges. In this case, the challenge of bushfires in Australian environments. The main goal of this lesson is to engage students in an inquiry process, starting from what they already know about bushfires to the creation of a central inquiry question that the class will investigate further. The Fire Ready interactive resource serves multiple roles. It hooks students by connecting to their prior knowledge, sparks curiosity about bushfire management, and ultimately helps them formulate meaningful questions about how communities can prepare for and respond to severe weather events. For the 15 minutes of the lesson, I will begin by displaying a KWL, what I know, what I want to know, and what I learned. Chart on the digital whiteboard. Students will spend a couple of minutes individually thinking about what they already know regarding bushfires, what causes them, what happens when they occur, and how people might manage them. The aim of this is to spark interest in what students want to discover and to encourage broad participation. I will ask them to share in small groups of 3, then invite volunteers or use a random name selector to contribute to the class KW chart. This also helps establish a focused purpose for our lesson, highlighting any gaps in knowledge that students want to fill. Then, for the middle, which is 25 minutes of the lesson, I will have the students work in pairs or small groups using computers or tablets. Each group will explore one of the resources modules, such as the EMBA attack game or the radiant heat simulation. While they're exploring, I will ask them to use a question formulation technique, graphic organizer to record any questions that come to mind. I might prompt them by asking, what happens if you don't put out the embers in time? Or, how do you think changing the wind speed affects the fire spread? These guiding questions are designed to help them articulate the cause and effect relationships they observe. As the students work, my role is to circulate around the room, offering support and clarification whenever needed. I will encourage them to turn simple yes or no questions into more open-ended ones. For example, instead of asking is wind speed important, I will prompt them to think deeper by asking How does increasing wind speed change the rate at which the fire spreads? This will help students move from basic observations to more critical thinking about the underlying causes and their effects. Then, for the final 20 minutes of the lesson, after the pairs have had sample time to explore and record their questions, we'll move into a consolidation phase using a question carousel. Here's how it will work. Each group will write down their most interesting or important questions on a large sheet of chart paper. Then, we'll have groups rotate around the room, reading other groups' questions and adding sticky notes with the comments or additionally questions that relate to what they see. This interactive activity not only promotes collaboration, but also helps students see connections between different ideas and refine their thinking. Once all groups have completed the carousel, we'll come together as a whole class to review the questions. I will facilitate a discussion where we prioritize and select the top inquiry question that resonates most with our investigation. For example, the class might decide on a question like, how can managing vegetation reduce bushfire risk? This chosen question will serve as the main inquiry focus for our future lessons and project. By the end of the lesson, students will have moved from merely recalling information to actively questioning and analyzing how environmental factors influence bushfire behavior, setting the stage for deeper investigation into how communities can effectively manage such risks. Now, for the mini-critique part of the assignment, I picked Jaden Williams' resource. This resource is the website of First Nations exhibit at National Museum of Australia. One strength of this resource is that it effectively engages users through free access to diverse multimedia content including visuals, audio, and interactive elements. It effectively portrays the rich history and cultural heritage of Aboriginal people and Torres Islanders, with a variety of formats accommodating different learning preferences and potentially increasing student interest in Indigenous perspectives on land and cultural connections. A limitation of this resource is that despite offering rich cultural and historical content, this resource lacks a specific focus on environmental management practices or severe weather events like bushfires, floods, droughts, or cyclones, as required by the ACARA geography curriculum. The teacher will likely need to provide additional guidance or supplementary materials to fully address curriculum requirements. This resource can still serve as an excellent introduction to Indigenous Australians' deep cultural connections to country. You can build upon this foundation and use this resource in classroom by developing guided inquiry activities where students explore traditional land management practices and compare them with contemporary approaches to severe weather events, creating meaningful connections between Indigenous knowledge and modern environment management. In this final slide, I present the references that have informed my resource critique and lesson plan. The references include key documents from the Australian curriculum and resources provided by CFA Victoria. And for those interested in expanding their understanding of bushfire education and natural hazards, additional resources are available from Geoscience Australia and the Australian Institute for Disaster Resilience, AIDR. These sites provide extensive materials and insights that can support classroom teaching and student learning. To summarize, this presentation has provided a comprehensive critique of the CFA MI Fire Ready interactive resource and demonstrated how it can be effectively used in a Year 5 geography lesson focused on cause and effect in bushfire management. In slide 1, I outline the importance of teaching bushfire management, highlighting its relevance to our national context and the Australian curriculum. This slide 2 details the resource itself, including its strengths, interactive features, and limitations. In slide 3, I describe a questioning lesson plan that actively engages students in exploring cause and effect relationships through guided inquiry. Slide 4 offered a mini critique of a peer's resource, pointing out its strengths and suggesting areas for enhancement, particularly the need to integrate indigenous fire management practices. And finally, slide 5 presented the reference list, ensuring that all sources are acknowledged and reinforcing the academic integrity of this lesson. Thank you for your attention.